Please welcome Dr. David Feinberg, Dr. Harlan Levine, Kristen Dahlgren, and Thomas Lauer to the stage.
Hey folks, my name's David. I'm the chairman of Oracle Health and Life Sciences. And I want to start by thanking all of you for spending the last couple days with us. I hope what you've seen is, first of all, Oracle's commitment to healthcare, our idea to build an open and connected platform that brings back office, front office, life sciences, revenue cycle in a way that allows you all to live out your missions of taking care of patients in the communities and the discoveries that you do every day. So this is the last keynote. There's a couple things following up, and we can't wait to see you next year. So now let me get to the panel, which I'm really excited about. And before I introduce Harlan, Kristen, and Thomas, I want to tell a story. And then I want to ask each of you to introduce yourselves more formally, why we decided and we're thrilled that you're here, and then we'll get into it. But the story that I want to tell is a few jobs ago, I was at Geisinger in rural Pennsylvania, and we created the largest whole exome sequencing program that had return of results in the world. And this was actually more than a few years ago. We're probably talking 10-ish years ago. And this little girl, I wouldn't say little, a young girl, 16 years old, comes in and she's dehydrated from soccer practice. And we give her IVs and consent her for what we called our MyCode program, which was looking at the whole exome. And she got better with the IVs, but the MyCode came back that she had 2 genes that are associated with those fatal cardiac abnormalities that you hear about young people dying at basketball practice, et cetera. So rural Pennsylvania is the kind of place where people don't move. It turns out we were treating 30 members of her extended family, and 15 of them had either one or both of those genes. And we were able to intervene, and I would say, trying to be humble, we saved 15 lives by looking at genes. And as we were thinking about this discussion today, my biggest question, and we'll get to it second, the first is introduce yourself. My biggest question is, how come we're not doing this on everyone? How come this isn't part of every single cancer treatment? How come we're not saying a newborn should have their whole exome sequenced so that we can understand pharmacogenomics? We can understand these autosomal dominant disorders. We can understand these polygenic risk factors. Now, part of the reason I think used to be, it's super expensive. I think that first one cost $1 million or $10 million that Tony Blair and Bill Clinton talked about. When we were doing it at Geisinger, it was in the $1,000, $2,000 range, but it's not that anymore, right? We're talking a couple $100. So that's what we're going to discuss, is how to get personalized medicine, precision medicine, genomic medicine into clinical care, how we can use it for life sciences, and how we can empower patients. So I'm super excited about the discussion. Harlan, you go first. Introduce yourself, tell us about City of Hope, and the great work you guys do.
Well, thanks, David, for having us. I think it cost $3 billion in 13 years.
Was it $3 billion?
To do the first one.
Okay.
So I am the president of innovation and health policy at City of Hope. City of Hope is one of the largest cancer research and treatment centers, or NCI designated cancer center. And we have a genomics institute in Arizona. And I mean, I'll start by saying that while you were doing that at Geisinger, in general, those tests were not covered by insurance. People didn't know what to do with it. And the field has just changed so fast from then, where no one was really clinically getting that test for cancer. And now the test is really recommended for most people with metastatic cancer, some early stage cancer. And what it does is it helps you understand that cancer is no longer just a few diseases. It's like hundreds of diseases, each with their own DNA blueprint. And it allows us to do targeted therapy. And what I'm talking about is somatic testing on the tumor itself. What you were referring to was germline testing, where you test the person. And that's still being underutilized. And it turns out that 15% of people today have cancers related to their germline. So what you were talking about is for cardiology is now happening for cancer and is just permeating so slowly. So the opportunity is tremendous, and I think we'll spend the next 25 minutes talking about the way that genomics can really transform the way we take care of cancer patients.
Love it, love it. So, Kristen, you've dealt with this firsthand, and like many folks have decided to make this now your life's mission.
Absolutely.
Please introduce yourself and tell us how we can help you.
So I'm still floored to be on a stage with the likes of all of you. I was a journalist working for the Today Show and Nightly News. Long career, thought I would be there forever, and then in 2019 I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Is the mic working for Kristen?
It is not, so
Let's
here we go.
start all over. Hey,
Okay.
Kristen, thanks for being here.
Yes, so happy to be with you. I was saying, I'm floored to be on this stage. I never thought I would be a patient advocate. I was a journalist. I was working for the Today Show and Nightly News as a correspondent for NBC, my dream job at the height of my career. And then in 2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I went through my treatment, I shared it on air, and then through some of my reporting, I came across this idea that cancer vaccines were in development. And it just blew my mind. I had never heard of them. I was a patient, I was a journalist, and this was news to me. And so as I talked to the researchers about what they needed, there were a few things. They said they were working in silos. And so we put together very quickly a group of the top cancer vaccine researchers in breast cancer to start with, and now we've moved on to other. So we have Memorial Sloan Kettering and Dana-Farber and Cleveland Clinic and University of Washington and MD Anderson, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm just listening to what these doctors need to help accelerate their research. We've added Merck. And I really appreciate that this panel has a patient perspective as well, because how many people here in the audience have had cancer or have a loved one who's had cancer? I mean, it's likely every hand going up. This is something that impacts all of us. And so this idea that we can use modern technology and scientific advances to make, sure that nobody has to go through what I went through as far as harsh and toxic treatments, and that our children and the next generations have much better options. I'll do anything I can for that, so I'm really excited to be here.
That's amazing, Kristen. So describe what a cancer vaccine, when you say cancer vaccine, what that means.
Sure, so right now we're mostly talking about therapeutic cancer vaccines. There is the idea that down the road they could be preventative and used in high-risk populations in particular. But what researchers are doing is they're able to ignite our immune system to seek out and eliminate cancer. And they're doing that through genomics. So this idea that they can map a tumor and see what particular antigens and neoantigens your tumor has and make either a very personalized vaccine for you or use AI computing to look at different tumors across the population and see what are the shared antigens and make some off-the-shelf vaccines. And we're seeing incredible results in pancreatic cancer, something that was once a death sentence, glioblastoma, in breast cancer, and kidney cancer, and it goes on and on. In the UK, I know, Larry Ellison has the Ellison Institute of Technology, where they're doing this on a large scale. They're now using a supercomputer to try and find those neoantigens or the shared antigens, and they're giving out 10,000 cancer vaccines as part of clinical trials. That's something that I'd like to see us doing here in the US to accelerate this process.
Perfect. Thomas, it's all about big data, coordinating this information, making sense of it. Tell us, introduce yourself and DNAnexus.
Yeah, thank you, David. I'm Thomas Lohr, the CEO of DNAnexus. DNAnexus was established in 2009 as one of the very first cloud-native healthcare data management and informatics platform purpose-built for genomics. So what does it mean? It means that for the past 16 years, we've helped customers across life sciences, diagnostic, health systems, biobanks around the world, and regulators platform and derive insight from genomics. And our standpoint, vantage point here is, we're seeing the entire industry starting to use genomics in a more meaningful way. And maybe two observations to react to your entry comments is, first, I agree with you in the sense that, today feels different. For the better part of the past 16 years, generating and doing analysis on genomics was captive of a research agenda. So it was the early R of R&D in pharma, early discovery, and it was mostly for health systems. Genome was analyzed in the context of a research unit. This has changed, clearly. I think it's clear for us what we're seeing supporting the entire ecosystem is that we're seeing the genomic data really graduating out of research and starting to penetrate more meaningfully production workflow activities. So as Chris indicated, in life sciences, we're seeing genomic information being accumulated and really looked at more carefully in the context of the D of R&D, development, clinical trials, new drug development. In health systems, we're seeing the genome start to move from research to get closer to the point of care. And if you look at the volume of genetic testing, it's going up quite drastically. So genomic era is here. The second observation, which is I think quite interesting, is if research tells us what's coming, well, research has gone far beyond just DNA data. Genome is, to some extent, old news. Now it's genome, exome, transcriptome, protein, metabolomics, spatial analysis, single cell analysis. And research is really in the world of multiomics now. And platforming genomics is already pretty difficult. Deriving insight is very challenging. If you look at multiomics, multiple molecular objects, the complexity gets compounded. And so my entry reaction to you is you're right. Genomic era is in front of us, but gosh, do we have a challenge as an industry to try to make sense of it and really being able to capture it in a way that's systematic.
Hey, Thomas, but how do we, from your vantage point, I see where you're sitting, you can kind of see what's happening in the ecosystem of genetic testing because, in essence, it goes through you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, we essentially process a large amount. We're the largest repository of genomic data in the world. We process a large amount of what comes off the sequencer, off the hardware.
I'm hoping your business grows exponentially.
We're doing okay.
Okay, so, but not for obvious business reasons, but importantly, because it means that then people are really starting to think about genomics as part of routine clinical care and adding it into multiomics and proteomics. Why do you think now is the time? Because it sounds like you're starting to see early signals of that. And what do you think we could do to accelerate it?
Okay. So the first point in terms of why is now the time, maybe three vectors. It's multifactorial, but first observation, you said it, the genomic object is more affordable and more accessible. It was very expensive not that long ago, and now, with innovation in terms of genomic sequencing technologies, the price point of a genome, individual genome, is getting closer to $100. So it's affordable. It's also more accessible. Sequencing technologies come with less burden. And just to provide one example, which I think is pretty provocative, Oxford Nanopore, who provides hardware for sequencing, has a sequencer that fits in the palm of your hand. And so it's easily deployable in remote field locations. So point number one, affordable and more accessible. Point number two, which I think is important, is when you look at the reimbursement framework, there's obviously a greater and increased acceptance that the genomic object has a lot of value in terms of care quality and to control cost of care. And just don't take my word for it. Just look at the CPT codes in 2025 that reimburse genetic testing. I mean, there are many, and many complicated and expensive tests are directly reimbursed by large payers like Medicare. So that suggests that the foundational platform for reimbursement of the early innings of precision medicine is here. I think the third observation, which I think is far more interesting and profound, is that we live at a time where you see two really interesting vectors converging and starting to collide, two interesting dynamics. First, a scientific track, CRISPR gene editing, and on the other side, of course, the emergence of AI. With CRISPR systems, we're able to basically edit gene really precisely and intentionally. We can deliver targeted innovation, at the gene level for diseases that have a genomic basis. And AI, and larger and larger and more robust language model gives us a chance now to basically synthesize new protein and new RNA design. So if you combine both, basically, we're just at the beginning of being able, through AI, to design intentionally new biological functions and then enable them through targeted gene editing. And combined, this is basically starting to open the door to a new frontier around target therapies and programmable therapies. And I think these are important vectors. Affordability and accessibility, the fact it's starting to be reimbursed, and then this really very interesting time of programmable intentional therapy.
Amazing, amazing. I want to ask Kristen and Harlan the same question, and you guys answer from the perspective of the patient and the provider. But it's the question of, okay, I'm a patient in rural America, or I'm a patient outside the US, not in an academic center, or I'm a provider there. This stuff isn't happening. Like what we just heard is not happening. What do we need to do? Because I know if I go to City of Hope, or if I know if I'm an intelligent, passionate person like you are, Kristen, that I'm going to advocate for myself or the people that call me up. But what about everyone else? Like, how do we make this that it's routine, that a primary care doc or a general community oncologist starts thinking about, hey, the way I've been doing things for 17 years or 20 years is not state of the art anymore. And what do I do as a patient? So you go first.
I mean, I think we have to make it available to those people. And I will say, yes, you'll advocate for yourself, but just as an example, my dad was battling colorectal cancer. I was his advocate, and I didn't do all the things that I wish in hindsight that I had done. His tumor wasn't, he didn't get it sequenced until 9 months into his treatment, and then it was too late to do anything, and we lost him. And so I think, it needs to be much easier for the patient. I was tearing up yesterday as I was watching the demo of the new EHR system, because having that AI that helps lead a patient through it is going to be transformational, so that they understand what to ask. They understand to look for clinical trials and what's available. I mean, right now, clinicaltrials.gov is a nightmare to try and navigate. And so I think a big piece of it is having that infrastructure that Oracle is building, and that's going to be an important part of it. And then I think the reason why a journalist even has a role in this at all is that I'm a communicator, and people need to know what to ask for, what's available. And so by making them understand the future of cancer treatment and what we can do in the very near future, and have them stand up and say, that's what we deserve, whether we live in Alabama or, close to Stanford, that's what we need. And so I think getting that and having primary care providers and oncologists in rural areas understand that they can send patients. It's like the UK system, that we were talking about. Yes, they have an NHS, so it makes it a lot different than our US healthcare system, but their small hospitals are referring to their larger cancer centers for these vaccine trials. And so it does have to all be interconnected, and we are at that point, that tipping point, if you will, where we can get that done, and it makes it a lot easier for providers, no matter where they are, to help their patients and for patients to know.
Yeah, thanks. And Harlan, you please answer, and you also talk about the percentage of patients that should have been sequenced, that don't get sequenced, right, that we know. I mean, this is now standard of care stuff that's not happening.
Yeah, so let me set a little context for this. Decades ago, the Institute of Medicine said that it took 17 years for new information to permeate into the medical community. But then it didn't really matter that much, because the doubling time of medical knowledge was 50 years. Today, the doubling time is 72 days. So we actually have a system of care where the training can't keep up with the new information. And in cancer, it's more prominent than any other of the conditions. So you were talking about people who are training or practicing 15, 20 years ago. If you got out into practice 5 or 7 years ago, the standard of care is completely revolutionized. So let me give you an example. In a particular type of lung cancer, the more common type, non-small cell lung cancer, the average life expectancy if you had metastatic lung cancer was 6 to 8 months. With genomic testing and targeted therapy, the life expectancy is now 60 to 80 months as opposed to 6 to 8 and increasing, and we're turning it into a chronic condition. But a recent article showed that only 51% of people who should get the testing, evidence-based, in the guideline, paid for by the payer, only 51% get it. And of the 51% that get it, 26% get the wrong targeted therapy afterwards. So basically today, 64% of people with metastatic lung cancer are getting the wrong therapy. So we have to recognize that this is not a problem that someone's intentionally doing something wrong, although there is pressure from the payers not to do this. The problem is the speed of change is happening so fast, the network can't possibly keep up outside the academic centers. So I think there's a lot of potential solutions out there. So one solution is something that City of Hope actually started, and we've actually spun out a company, and we've been partnered now with 6 other NCI centers, where we take our experts, our medical specialists who focus on lung cancer or breast cancer, and we say we're going to help community physicians across the country. And the company's called Access Hope. It's hired by employers, and we use technology and AI to identify complex cases, and we actually help the community doctor. The patients never come back to our institution. So that's one approach. Another approach, which is where I think we should be heading, is our system is set up where the kind of inherent in your question, community practice is competitive with academic medicine. We need to break that down and integrate the two, and in each community, there should be a partnership with kind of rules of the road, like these type of patients go to academic centers, these people can get care in the community. And by the way, most people want to get care in the community, close to home with their family. But if you form that partnership, then you get information diffusing much faster. And then Thomas referred to the other one, we need technology solutions. There really is no way that a human being can keep up with all the little hints in the history, all the details in the genomics to know exactly what to do. So we need systems that can integrate the genomic information with the electronic medical record, with some of the psychosocial background of the patient, and then not replace the oncologist, but augment the oncologist and say, hey, you should be thinking about X, Y, and Z. I think that's the future of oncology care, and I don't think it's a distant future. I think it's around the corner.
Excellent. Hey, Thomas and Harlan, will you guys talk about the work you've done around your code name Poseidon? I don't know if that's a code name or
it's
not.
It's a product name at this stage.
Okay.
But no, great. Yeah. So City of Hope and DNAnexus have enjoyed a productive and enjoyable partnership for the past 10 years. And a few years into the partnership, I don't want to speak for you, Harlan, but City of Hope really declared their vision with they had clarity that a tsunami of data was coming. And they saw it coming a mile away. And so they decided to really commit a structured program to really develop this infrastructure that's needed to capture and then run analysis at scale on multimodal data, including molecular data. And so Poseidon was born after a couple of years of built on the DNAnexus platform. And what it is a unified ecosystem where City of Hope has amassed highly curated multimodal data, of course, a lot of EHR data, phenotype, longitudinal for over 1 million people. And we're overlaying omics data for an increased portion of that sample, that population on the platform. On top of it, you have a workbench. So you basically have a robust analytics layer where you can run different types of informatics for use cases ranging from research all the way to point of care. And everything is wrapped into a collaboration model with governance access. It's very safe, secure, and compliant. And so in many ways, Poseidon for the DNAnexus represents a bit of a blueprint of what you need to think about and how you can develop this infrastructure for the era of precision medicine. But Harlan, if you want to expand.
I mean, briefly, what we've done is we've taken the underlying DNAnexus model, we've overlaid an oncology ontology, if we will. So the data sits in a way that makes sense for a researcher. And this isn't about just one patient at a time, but it allows our physicians and our researchers to say, I'm interested in this lung cancer with this mutation. How did these patients respond to therapy X versus therapy Y? And if you don't have that in a common database, organized in a way to really make it intuitive, you're not going to be able to ask those questions or answer those questions. So that's why we worked with DNAnexus and created this tool. And it's really just catapulted our researchers' ability to not just ask the right questions, but start to get at the answers.
So City of Hope, if you haven't been there, is just outside Los Angeles, and it used to be a sanatorium for tuberculosis. And when you had tuberculosis, we didn't have treatments. I think you just went out to beautiful Duarte and rested. Is that the history?
Right. We thought it was beneath human dignity to be dying in the streets, so we gave people a place to be peacefully cared for as they were dying from TB.
It's pretty amazing because it still has that kind of beautiful vibe out there. Now, not for the whole world, but for the US, we don't have a lot of people dying from TB, and it's now become this kind of center for cancer. So we're going to do a rapid fire. Will City of Hope, and whatever it represents, be gone in 10 years because we have figured out how to prevent cancers, or reimagine? I want you to have a job, Harlan, but reimagined into something else.
Yeah.
Because we've used AI at scale, we've done vaccines, we've done preventative things, we have lifestyle medicine. Will we see fundamental changes that we saw, like in tuberculosis or with polio or whatever, in cancer? We've been talking forever, moonshots and war on cancer. Do you think this era, with the proteomics, with the multiomics, with the AI, with these new abilities with CRISPR, that we're going to see fundamental changes where we'd be on this stage, let's say in 5 years, and it's a completely different conversation? Or is it still going to be incremental? You go first, Thomas.
All right. Well, that's a tough one.
You get 20 seconds.
Stop the recording here if I get this wrong. Well, my raison d'etre is to put Harlan out of a job. So
Nice.
I hope that in 10 years we're going to get there. I do believe that the situation will be very, very different. AI is a game changer in terms of curing complex disease and certainly addressing oncology. It's just popped up in healthcare and precision health, and you already see that it's delivering faster and higher fidelity diagnostics. It's helping us identify through multiomics in research, develop risk factors for diseases, and the models are very encouraging. And then it's powering really computational biology and helping us understand, how to deliver the optimal therapeutic protocol to an individual based on their clinical genomic profile. So we're going past the paradigm of trial and errors. So when you couple that with the progress around vaccine technologies for cancer, I do believe that in a time window of 10 years, we will be winning the fight against cancer.
I love it. So we got one yes. Kristen.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not doing this to build a legacy nonprofit. It is to put myself out of business and to have better patient experiences. And I would add to your list of all the wonderful advances, we're going to need collaboration in this. So I love what you're doing with Poseidon. I think Oracle could play a huge role in building the infrastructure. The whole idea of Cancer Vaccine Coalition from the beginning was to get the smartest people into a space together, be the hub, bring the pieces together for this. And we saw, a great example in Operation Warp Speed and the role that Oracle played. I think we can do that again for cancer, and I think it's absolutely possible to, in 10 years, have much better treatments, to at least have it be a chronic disease and not deaths. And I think for patients, that time is of the essence. We have to have the same urgency that we did during COVID, because in that 10 years, there are a lot of people who are going to lose their battle with cancer, and that's unacceptable when we have all of these modern technologies that we can do something about it.
Fantastic. We got two yeses. Harlan, you got to say if you're going to be out of work in 10 years or not.
Yeah, so City of Hope will not be out of business in 10 years because I think the combination of top science, clinical care, and as you were describing, that ethos of compassion and empathy, that's going to be needed in whatever iteration of healthcare we have. But cancer care is undoubtedly going to be completely transformed over the next 5 to 10 years. And we're just to the tip of the iceberg. Thomas was talking about the fact that it's now about multiomics. Think about this. There are 20,000 genes in our genome that we know about. But that's 1% to 2% of the entire genome. And there's all this information out there that controls the expression of those genes and things we don't even know about today. But think about this. Your genome in your brain cell is the same genome that's like in your rectum. So there's all, which kind of makes you think about when people say you have your head up, oh, forget that. But the point is, we're gonna learn so much because there's so much opportunity to misspell. You know, if the genome is a bunch of letters, it's only 4 letters, but the number of combinations out there are with 36 zeros. It's 3 billion to the 4th power. And there's always going to be spelling errors. And as smart as we get in treating a cancer or preventing a cancer, unfortunately, the biology is smart too, and there's always going to be like an evolution and an adaptation. So I think we're going to be in a constant battle, and I agree with exactly what Kristen said. We're going to turn it into a chronic disease, but we have another 3 billion base pairs to study. So I think there's still going to be an opportunity to fight the good fight, but the way we do it will be completely transformed by AI and genomics.
Super exciting. A huge amount of gratitude for you folks spending your time for the discussion. Please join me in thanking the panel. Thank you. And once again, we got a couple more things to go in small groups, and then I just hope everyone has safe travel, and we again appreciate and have amazing gratitude for you joining us. Thank you.